Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. JFK International Airport, New York. The metallic click of the airplane door echoed like a gunshot in the tense silence of first class. Sophia Carter froze, her hand still on the latch, as the Boeing 787 trembled slightly on the runway. Her brown eyes widened when she realized what she had just done. No, 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 she murmured, pulling the lever desperately. Nothing. The door was locked in security mode. Ma'am, what did you do? The flight attendant appeared, running, his face pale as paper. I just wanted my bag. It was falling. Sophia gesticulated frantically toward the overhead compartment, where her carry-on bag was dangling precariously. In seat 1 Ampere, Ethan Brooks looked up from his MacBook, perfectly styled dark brown hair, a Tom Ford suit that cost more than Sophia's annual salary, and an expression that could freeze the East River. At 34, he had built a billion-dollar real estate empire with the same coldness he demonstrated at that moment. Let me understand. His voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. You just locked the door of an aircraft that should have taken off 5 minutes ago. Sophia felt the blush rise up her neck, typical of her luck. On the most important day of her career as a sustainability consultant, when she had finally landed an international contract, she had managed to accidentally hijack a billionaire. It was an accident. I've never flown first class. I didn't know that. Captain, we have a problem. The commander's voice crackled over the intercom. The main door is locked. We need to return to the gate. What followed was orchestrated chaos. Technicians invaded the plane, passengers were evacuated, and Sophia found herself at the center of a storm involving airport administration, the airline, and a billionaire who looked at her as if she were a particularly annoying insect. 3 hours, Ethan said when they finally managed to open the door. 3 hours delayed because the lady decided to play flight attendant. I said it was an accident. Accidents have consequences. He closed the laptop with a sharp snap. I lost a $50 million meeting in Los Angeles because of your accident. Sophia swallowed hard. 50 million? Her rented apartment in Queens wasn't even worth 50,000. Listen here, princess, she retorted, her Latina spirit surfacing. I understand you're upset, but it wasn't on purpose. And stop looking at me like I'm like your what? Like I'm invisible. For a second, something passed through his ice blue eyes. Surprise. Interest. But it disappeared so quickly that Sophia thought she had imagined it. You know what? Ethan stood up, imposing even in the spacious cabin. Since you ruined my schedule, you'll have to help fix it. What do you mean? A predatory smile curved his lips. The next flight to LA leaves tomorrow at 6 o'clock p.m. You're coming with me. Since you delayed my life, now you'll have to be part of it. Sophia blinked. Sure, she had heard wrong. Are you crazy? I don't know you. Ethan Brooks, CEO of Brooks Properties. There. Now we know each other. He extended his hand with the naturalness of someone accustomed to having all his wishes granted. And you are completely insane if you think I'll accept this, Sophia murmured, but found herself shaking his hand. The skin was surprisingly rough for someone who lived in offices, and warm, very warm. Sophia Carter, she said quickly, withdrawing her hand. And I have a life. Thank you. I can't just $50,000. What? That's what I'll pay you to be my personal assistant during this trip. 3 days in Los Angeles. His eyes gleamed with something that seemed like amusement. Unless you'd prefer to explain to the airline how you're going to pay for the delay damages. Sophia felt the ground slip from under her feet. $50,000? It was more money than she had earned in the last 2 years combined. This is blackmail, she whispered. This is business. Ethan picked up his briefcase and walked toward the exit. My driver will pick you up tomorrow at 4 o'clock p.m. Wear something presentable. And he left, leaving a trail of expensive cologne and a completely stunned Sophia. Outside the plane, watching the scene through the window, Ethan's personal assistant, Emily Wong, shook her head with a knowing smile. 3 years trying to get you to date someone, she murmured to herself. And all it took was a crazy Latina locking you inside a plane. Meanwhile, Sophia was still standing in the middle of the aisle, processing what had just happened. In 28 years of life, she had collected an impressive series of small catastrophes, but this one had the potential to be the biggest of all, or the best. Her iPhone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. Wear something presentable doesn't mean the most expensive clothes you have. It means something that won't embarrass me in public. Eb. Sophia looked at the message, and then at her own clothes. Jeans, basic blouse, and comfortable sneakers for the trip. Arrogant jerk, she grumbled, but her fingers were already typing a response. And if I don't want to go? The reply came immediately. Then you'll have to explain to your family why you lost the chance of a lifetime. P.S. I already know you live at 14,275 Roosevelt Avenue. My lawyers are very efficient. Eb. Sophia's eyes widened. How did he? Another text. Oh, and Sophia, next time you lock a plane door, make sure there isn't a battered New York billionaire on board. It tends to complicate things. Eb. Despite everything, Sophia found herself smiling. Maybe, just maybe, her luck was finally changing. She looked out the airport window, seeing the Manhattan skyline in the distance. Tomorrow, she would be flying to Los Angeles with a man who could buy and sell her entire life without even blinking. Good grief, she murmured. What have I gotten myself into? But as she walked toward the airport exit, Sophia Carter couldn't stop smiling. As scary as it was, Ethan Brooks had just offered her the adventure of a lifetime, and she had never been the type to refuse a good adventure. Los Angeles. The Beverly Hills Hotel. The black Tesla Model S glided through LA's sun-drenched streets like a predator stalking prey. Sophia pressed her face against the tinted window, watching the city unfold in all its golden, sprawling glory. Hollywood sign perched on distant hills, palm trees swaying in the California breeze, the Pacific Coast Highway stretching like a ribbon toward the endless blue ocean. First time in Los Angeles? Ethan asked, without looking up from his tablet, his fingers dancing across the screen with surgical precision. Is it that obvious? Sophia touched the glass, leaving a small fingerprint that she quickly wiped away. You're practically vibrating with excitement. Most people who travel with me are either bored, senseless, or terrified into silence. Which category do I fall into? For the first time since they'd boarded the plane 6 hours ago, Ethan looked at her directly, really looked. Her dark hair was slightly mussed from the flight, her olive skin glowing under the car's ambient lighting, and those expressive brown eyes held a mixture of wonder and defiance that he found unsettling. I haven't decided yet. The truth was, Sophia Carter had spent the entire flight systematically destroying every preconception he'd had about her. She spoke 4 languages fluently, he'd eavesdropped on her phone calls, had a master's degree in environmental science from Columbia. His security team was thorough, and had somehow managed to negotiate a better wine selection with the flight attendant in perfect French, while he'd been stuck with subpar champagne. She was an enigma wrapped in middle-class sensibilities and designer knockoffs. So, what exactly am I supposed to do as your personal assistant? Sophia made air quotes around the title, because I should mention I don't do coffee runs, dry cleaning, or anything that involves your personal preferences. Ethan's lips twitched. Careful, Miss Carter. Your New York directness is showing better than billionaire passive aggression. Touché. The Tesla pulled up to the Beverly Hills Hotel, and Sophia's breath caught. The iconic pink facade gleamed like a jewel against the LA skyline. Valets in crisp uniforms standing at attention beside perfectly manicured palm trees. Holy cow, she whispered. He's not on the guest list, Ethan said dryly, stepping out of the car. But I'll see what I can do. Despite herself, Sophia laughed. Did you just make a joke? I've been known to have a sense of humor. It's buried somewhere beneath the quarterly reports and hostile takeovers. The hotel lobby was a temple to old Hollywood glamour. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors, and Sophia felt severely underdressed despite having splurged on a new outfit with money she couldn't afford. Mr. Brooks. The concierge approached with the reverence usually reserved for A-list celebrities. Your usual bungalow is ready. And the adjoining suite for Miss Carter. Sophia, she supplied, pronouncing it slowly. Carter. Of course. Welcome to the Beverly Hills Hotel, Miss Carter. Adjoining suites? Sophia hissed as they walked through the lush gardens toward their accommodations. Would you prefer the poolside cabana? I hear the lounge chairs are quite comfortable. I meant I know what you meant. Ethan gestured toward a private bungalow nestled among towering palms. Relax, Miss Carter. Your virtue is safe. I have enough complications in my life without adding sexual harassment lawsuits to the mix. The walk to their bungalow felt like entering a different world. Perfectly manicured gardens, the distant sound of tennis matches, and the gentle splash of the famous kidney-shaped pool where Hollywood legends had once lounged. When they reached the bungalow, Sophia stepped into a world that belonged in architectural magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Hollywood Hills. The furnishings were a perfect blend of classic Hollywood elegance and modern minimalism. Fresh orchids adorned every surface, and the air carried the faint scent of jasmine and old money. "This is where you stay when you're in LA." Sophia wandered to the windows, pressing her palms against the cool glass. One of the places. Ethan loosened his tie, the first casual gesture she'd seen him make. "The company maintains residences in 12 cities worldwide. Must be nice to have so many homes. Must be nice to have one that actually feels like home." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and Sophia turned to study his profile. For just a moment, his carefully constructed mask had slipped, revealing something raw and lonely underneath. "Where's home for you?" she asked softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I wouldn't know. I left home at 16 and never looked back." "Why?" "Because home was a place where people disappointed you, left you, or let you down." In that order, the silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken stories. Sophia wanted to ask more, to understand what had turned this brilliant man into such a fortress of controlled emotions. But before she could speak, his phone rang. Brooks. His voice was crisp, professional, all traces of vulnerability erased. "No. Reschedule the Barcelona meeting." "Yes. I know what time it is there. Because I pay you to handle these things, Emily, not to question my judgment." He listened for a moment, his expression growing increasingly thunderous. "What do you mean she's here?" A pause. "Tell me you didn't, Emily. Tell me you didn't give my mother this address." Sophia watched his face cycle through what looked like panic, fury, and resignation in rapid succession. "How long until she arrives?" Another pause. 20 minutes. Dumb. He hung up and turned to Sophia with the expression of a man facing execution. "Change of plans. You're about to meet my mother." "Your mother? But I thought that. I don't have family." "I wish." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling for the first time since she'd met him. "Eleanor Brooks. Former socialite and full-time emotional manipulator. She can't be that bad. She once told a journalist that I was her greatest disappointment and most profitable investment." Ethan straightened his tie with sharp, agitated movements. "The interview was for my 30th birthday profile in Fortune." Ouch. Indeed. He looked at Sophia as if seeing her for the first time. Actually, this could work. What could work? A slow smile spread across Ethan's face, transforming his features from coldly handsome to devastatingly attractive. "Tell me, Miss Carter, how do you feel about a little performance art? I feel like I should be very concerned about whatever you're planning." "Smart woman." Ethan moved closer, close enough that she could see the golden flecks in his blue eyes. "My mother has been trying to marry me off to suitable East Coast heiresses for the past decade. She's particularly fond of Isabella Langley Sterling, a delightful creature who collects charity galas and has the personality of wet toast. And this concerns me how, because, my dear Sophia, you're going to be my girlfriend." Sophia blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "Just for tonight, just to get her off my back." Ethan's voice took on a persuasive tone that probably worked wonders in boardrooms. "Think of it as an extension of your assistant duties." "Absolutely not. I'll double your fee." I said no. "Triple it." Sophia hesitated. $150,000 would change her entire life. Pay off her student loans, help her parents with their mortgage, maybe even allow her to start her own consulting firm. What exactly would I have to do? Be yourself. Be charming. Be everything that will horrify my mother's sensibilities about appropriate matches for the heir to the Brooks fortune. You want me to horrify your mother? I want you to be gloriously, unapologetically yourself. Speak with your hands. Laugh too loudly. Call me Ethan instead of Mr. Brooks. Show her that I'm perfectly capable of choosing my own romantic disasters. Thank you very much. Sophia stared at him. You're completely insane. Probably. Is that a yes? The sound of car doors slamming echoed from the driveway, followed by voices approaching the bungalow. Ethan's eyes widened in panic. She's early. She's never early. Without thinking, Sophia grabbed Ethan's face in both hands and pulled him down for a kiss. It was supposed to be a quick peck, a moment of pretense to sell their story, but the second their lips touched, something electric sparked between them. Ethan's hands came up to frame her face, and suddenly, Sophia forgot why she was kissing him in the first place. He tasted like expensive coffee and dangerous possibilities. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. That was... Ethan started. Method acting, Sophia said quickly. For authenticity. Right. Authenticity. A sharp knock echoed through the bungalow, followed by a woman's imperious voice. Ethan, I know you're here. The front desk was distressingly helpful with your location. Showtime, Ethan whispered, his breath warm against Sophia's ear. Wait. Sophia grabbed his arm. What's my story? How did we meet? How long have we been dating? We met on a plane, Ethan said with a grin that was equal parts wicked and grateful. And, Miss Carter, you completely derailed my life. That, Sophia muttered as Eleanor Brooks's voice grew closer to the door, is truer than you know? The front door opened, and Eleanor Brooks swept in like a perfectly coiffed hurricane. She was a study in West Coast perfection. Silver hair styled in an elegant bob, a designer suit that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly rent, and eyes the same piercing blue as her son's, but twice as calculating. Those eyes swept over Sophia with the efficiency of a military scanner, cataloging every detail from her off-the-rack dress to her queen's accent to the way her hand rested possessively on Ethan's arm. Well, Eleanor said, her voice dripping with disdain and curiosity in equal measure, this is unexpected. Ethan straightened, every inch the billionaire CEO, except for the slight tremor in his hand where it touched Sophia's back. Mother, I'd like you to meet Sophia Carter. Sophia, my mother. Eleanor Brooks. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Brooks, Sophia said sweetly, adding just enough New York to her accent to make it noticeable. The older woman's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. How refreshing. And Sophia realized that this was going to be a very long evening. The Beverly Hills Hotel, private dining terrace. So, Miss Carter. Eleanor Brooks's voice carried the crystalline precision of someone who'd been trained to weaponize politeness. Ethan tells me you work in environmental consulting. They were seated on the hotel's private terrace. Crystal glasses catching the light from the setting California sun, Sophia had somehow survived the first hour of dinner without committing any major social crimes. Though she'd caught Ethan hiding a smile when she'd instinctively reached for the wrong fork. I specialize in corporate sustainability strategies, Sophia replied, carefully modulating her accent to sound more professional. I help companies reduce their carbon footprint while maintaining profitability. How noble. Eleanor's tone suggested that noble was roughly equivalent to naive. Ethan's hand found Sophia's under the table, squeezing gently. Whether it was encouragement or warning, she couldn't tell. And where exactly did you two meet? Eleanor continued her interrogation. Ethan has been so secretive about his personal life lately. On a plane, actually, Sophia said, the truth feeling safer than any lie she could construct. I was having some trouble with my luggage, and Ethan was kind enough to help. How gallant. The older woman's eyes narrowed slightly. And this was recently? Very recent, Ethan interjected smoothly. Sometimes these things just happen fast. Indeed, they do. Eleanor's smile was predatory. Rather like market crashes. Sophia nearly choked on her wine. Excuse me? Oh, nothing personal, dear. It's just that Ethan has always been so methodical about his romantic investments. Very thorough in his due diligence. Very concerned with long-term returns. Mother, Ethan's voice carried a warning. I'm simply curious about what makes Miss Carter so special. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. Tell me, dear, what are your thoughts on the current administration's economic policies? Sophia blinked. Of all the questions she'd expected, this wasn't one of them. Well, she said slowly, I think any policy that prioritizes short-term profits over long-term environmental stability is ultimately self-defeating, regardless of which party proposes it. Interesting. And your political affiliations? I believe in evidence-based policy, social responsibility, and the radical idea that corporations should pay their fair share of taxes. Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. How progressive. Eleanor's tone could have frozen champagne. And your family background? My father's an electrician. My mother's a high school guidance counselor. They've been married for 30 years and are the happiest people I know. Working class. How authentic. The condescension in those 3 words made Sophia's New York temper flare like struck flint. She'd grown up with less, but she'd never been ashamed of where she came from. You know what I find authentic? Mrs. Brooks? Sophia's voice remained sweet, but steel entered her posture. People who judge others by their character rather than their stock portfolios. People who understand that love isn't a merger and marriage isn't an acquisition. The temperature on the terrace seemed to drop 10 degrees. How idealistic, Eleanor murmured. Youth does tend toward such romantic notions. Age tends toward cynicism. Sophia shot back. That doesn't make it wisdom. Ethan's hand had gone completely still in hers. She couldn't tell if he was impressed or horrified. Ethan, darling, might I have a word? Privately? Actually, Mother, Sophia and I were just about to. It wasn't a request. The voice that had probably terrorized Beverly Hills society for decades brooked no argument. Ethan squeezed Sophia's hand once more before releasing it. "I'll be right back," he murmured. "Take your time," Sophia said brightly. "I'll just sit here and practice my authentic charm." The moment they stepped inside, Sophia slumped in her chair and reached for her wine glass. Through the partially open sliding door, she could hear fragments of their conversation. "Completely unsuitable. Not your decision to make. That little gold digger, don't you dare." Sophia's cheeks burned. Gold digger. She'd never asked Ethan for anything except the money he'd offered. Well, technically demanded she accept. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Don't let the Ice Queen get to you. You're doing great. Emily Wong." Ethan's assistant must be watching from somewhere nearby. Sophia typed back, "Easy for you to say. You're not being dissected like a lab specimen. Trust me. I've seen Ethan's other dates. They usually cry by now. You're holding your own beautifully." Other dates? Isabella Langley Sterling lasted exactly 12 minutes at a charity gala before excusing herself to the powder room and never returning. "You're still here." Sophia found herself smiling despite the circumstances. At least she was winning by default. The sliding door opened, and Ethan returned alone, his jaw tight with barely contained frustration. "Where's your mother?" Sophia asked, retreating to regroup. "She'll be back." Ethan sat down heavily, loosening his tie with sharp, agitated movements. "I'm sorry about that. She was completely out of line." "Which part? The gold digger accusation or the implication that I'm some kind of social climbing opportunist?" Ethan's eyes flashed. "She said that, among other things." Sophia took a sip of wine, studying his face. "Does it matter? This is all fake anyway, right?" For a moment, something flickered across Ethan's features. Disappointment, regret, but it vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. "Right. Fake." The silence stretched between them, filled with the distant sounds of the hotel's evening activities, a jazz quartet playing by the pool, the gentle splash of late-night swimmers, the soft murmur of other couples enjoying romantic dinners on nearby terraces. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said finally. "Shoot. Why does your mother's opinion matter so much? You're a grown man, a successful businessman. Why let her manipulate you like this?" Ethan was quiet for so long that Sophia thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because for the first 16 years of my life, her approval was the only thing that mattered. And old habits die hard. What happened when you were 16? I figured out that her love came with conditions, terms, and clauses, performance metrics." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Turns out I wasn't a very good investment." Sophia's heart clenched. "Ethan, don't." He held up a hand. "Don't give me the pity look. I've built a perfectly good life without needing anyone's approval. Have you?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Ethan's eyes met hers, and for a moment, his carefully constructed walls wavered. "Mr. Brooks," a hotel staff member appeared at the terrace entrance. "Your mother asked me to inform you that she's retired for the evening. She'll see you both for brunch tomorrow at 11 o'clock. "Wonderful," Ethan muttered. When they were alone again, Sophia leaned forward. "So, what's the plan for tomorrow? More performance art?" "Actually," Ethan said, his voice taking on a different quality, "I was thinking we might try something radical. The truth." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "The truth. Not about us," Ethan clarified quickly, "but about what I want, what I don't want. Maybe it's time I stopped letting her dictate the terms of my life. And you think I can help with that?" Ethan's smile was genuine this time, transforming his entire face. "Sophia Carter, you locked me in an airplane and completely derailed my carefully planned existence. If anyone can help me stand up to my mother, it's you." Despite everything, the fake relationship, the impossible situation, the emotional minefield they were navigating, Sophia found herself smiling back. "Well, when you put it like that, is that a yes?" "That's a yes, but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, no more lies about our relationship status. If we're going to do this, we tell her the truth that I'm your employee. Here on business." "Agreed." "Second, you back me up when I speak my mind. No apologizing for my opinions or trying to smooth things over." "Done." "And third," Sophia hesitated, then forged ahead. "When this is over, when I go back to New York, and you go back to your billion-dollar empire, we're square. No guilt, no regrets, no what-ifs." Something shadowed Ethan's expression, but he nodded. "Square." They shook hands across the table, sealing their agreement But as Sophia felt the warmth of his palm against hers, she couldn't shake the feeling that some agreements were easier to make than to keep, especially when the person you were making them with had already started to feel like so much more than just a business arrangement. The jazz quartet segued into a slower song, something sultry and romantic that drifted across the terrace like a promise. Other couples had begun to dance on the patio below, moving together in the golden glow of the hotel's ambient lighting. Sophia, Ethan's voice was softer now, uncertain in a way she'd never heard before. Yeah, thank you, for tonight, for standing up to her, for he paused, searching for words. For not running, the night's still young, Sophia said lightly, but her heart was beating faster. I might still bolt. I hope not. The words were barely a whisper, but they hit Sophia like a physical force. She looked up to find Ethan watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Part gratitude. Part something deeper and more dangerous. Ethan, I know, business arrangement, professional boundaries. He stood abruptly, breaking the spell. We should probably get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a challenge. An understatement. As they walked back toward their adjoining suites, Sophia couldn't help but wonder if the biggest challenge wouldn't be facing Eleanor Brooks tomorrow. It would be remembering that what she was starting to feel for Ethan Brooks was supposed to be fake. The Beverly Hills Hotel, pool cabana, and downtown Los Angeles, the California sun was already blazing at 9 o'clock. When Sophia's phone rang, jerking her from the first decent sleep she'd had in weeks, the Egyptian cotton sheets at the Beverly Hills Hotel were like sleeping on a cloud. And for a moment, she'd forgotten where she was and why she was there. Carter, she answered groggily, not bothering to check the caller ID. Good morning, sunshine. Ethan's voice was annoyingly chipper for someone who probably hadn't slept any better than she had. Change of plans for brunch. Sophia sat up, pushing her dark hair out of her face. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her suite, she could see early morning joggers making their way through the hotel's perfectly manicured grounds. Please tell me your mother came to her senses and decided to fly back to New York. Not quite. She's invited herself along on my site visit today. Site visit? The Horizon Tower project, downtown LA. 35 floors of mixed-use development that's either going to revolutionize sustainable urban living or bankrupt me spectacularly. Sophia swung her legs out of bed, already calculating the complications, and she's coming because Eleanor Brooks doesn't do anything without an ulterior motive. My guess? She wants to see how I handle business while distracted by my inappropriate romantic entanglement. Gee, thanks for the glowing review. Her words, not mine. Ethan's voice softened. Actually, this could work in our favor. If we're going to tell her the truth about our arrangement, doing it in a professional setting might take some of the personal sting out of it. Sophia wasn't so sure about that. But she was committed to their agreement. What time? Car picks us up in an hour. And Sophia, wear something that says serious professional rather than gold-digging opportunist. I know it's a subtle distinction, but I get it. Business attire for business truth-telling. Exactly. An hour later, Sophia found herself squeezed into the back of Ethan's Tesla between him and his mother, trying not to notice how good he smelled or how Eleanor Brooks's Chanel No. 5 was giving her a headache. She'd chosen her most conservative outfit, a navy blazer, white blouse, and pencil skirt that she'd bought for job interviews, but she still felt underdressed next to Eleanor's perfectly tailored St. John Kneat suit. So, Miss Carter, Eleanor said as they navigated LA's morning traffic, Ethan tells me you'll be consulting on the environmental aspects of his new project. Sophia shot Ethan a look. When had they discussed that? Actually, Ethan said smoothly, Sophia's expertise in corporate sustainability is exactly what the Horizon project needs. She's been reviewing our green building certifications and carbon offset strategies. It wasn't entirely a lie. Sophia had spent the previous evening reading every document about the project that Ethan had left in her suite, partly out of professional curiosity and partly because she couldn't sleep after their conversation on the terrace. How convenient, Eleanor murmured. And you have experience with projects of this scale? I've worked with several Fortune 500 companies on sustainability initiatives, Sophia replied carefully. Though this would be my first mixed-use development of this scope. Ah, so this is something of a learning opportunity for you. The way Eleanor said it made it sound like charity work. Sophia felt her New York backbone straightening. Every project is a learning opportunity. Mrs. Brooks, the moment you stop learning in this industry, you become irrelevant. Eleanor's smile was sharp. How refreshingly honest. The Horizon Tower construction site was a marvel of organized chaos. 35 floors of steel and glass, rising from what had once been a collection of abandoned warehouses in downtown LA's Arts District. Construction workers in hard hats moved with purposeful efficiency. Cranes swung massive beams into place, and the air hummed with the sound of progress. Ethan transformed the moment they stepped out of the car. This wasn't the conflicted son struggling with maternal approval, or the reluctant fake boyfriend navigating romantic complications. This was Ethan Brooks, CEO and visionary, in his element. The building will be LEED Platinum certified, he explained as they walked toward the construction trailer that served as the on-site office. 60% reduction in energy consumption compared to conventional buildings, rainwater harvesting system, and a green roof that'll provide both insulation and community garden space for residents. Sophia found herself genuinely impressed. What about transportation integration? Light rail station 2 blocks away, dedicated bike storage and repair facility, and electric vehicle charging stations in the parking structure. Ethan's eyes lit up as he talked about the project. The residential units will be a mix of market rate and affordable housing, with retail and office space on the lower floors. The goal is to create a genuine mixed-income community rather than just another luxury tower. And the profit margins? Eleanor interjected. Competitive, not obscene, but sustainable. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Sometimes the goal is building something worthwhile, rather than just maximizing returns. How noble. That word again. Sophia was beginning to hate the way Eleanor wielded it like a weapon. The construction trailer was cramped but functional, covered in blueprints, environmental impact studies, and progress charts. Ethan's site manager, a weathered man named Tom Alvarez, greeted them with the kind of easy familiarity that spoke to mutual respect. "Mrs. Brooks, good to see you again," Tom said, shaking Eleanor's hand with genuine warmth. "And you must be Miss Carter. Ethan's been talking about bringing in a sustainability consultant, hasn't he?" Sophia glanced at Ethan, who was studying a blueprint with sudden intensity. "Tom's been with Brooks Properties for 8 years, Ethan said. "He's the one who actually makes my crazy ideas work." "Crazy ideas that usually end up being brilliant," Tom replied with a grin. "Like the geothermal heating system for the Phoenix project, or the solar array integration in Denver." Eleanor looked around the trailer with the expression of someone who'd accidentally wandered into the wrong neighborhood. "And how long until this project is completed?" 18 months, Ethan answered. "We're actually ahead of schedule and under budget." "Miraculous." Tom caught Sophia's eye and made a barely perceptible face that suggested he'd dealt with Eleanor Brooks before and found the experience less than enjoyable. "Miss Carter," Tom said, "would you like to see the green roof mock-up? Ethan's particularly proud of that system." "I'd love to." They climbed to the top of the construction trailer, where Ethan had created a working model of the building's innovative roof system. Native plants, solar panels, and rainwater collection systems integrated into a design that was both functional and beautiful. "This is incredible," Sophia said genuinely. "The water reclamation alone will save thousands of gallons annually." "Exactly." Ethan's face lit up with the passion of someone discussing their life's work. "And the community garden space will provide fresh produce for the residential units while reducing the building's overall carbon footprint." "You could market the produce to the retail spaces on the ground floor," Sophia suggested. "Create a true farm-to-table ecosystem within the building itself." Ethan stared at her. That's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you're thinking like a developer instead of a systems analyst." Sophia found herself leaning closer, caught up in the problem-solving aspect. "You could even install small-scale food processing equipment, preserve seasonal produce, create value-added products, a building that feeds itself," Ethan murmured. "Sophia, you might have just solved our biggest marketing challenge." They were standing close now, close enough that Sophia could see the flecks of gold in Ethan's blue eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body in the cool morning air. For a moment, the fake relationship didn't feel fake at all. "Well," Eleanor's voice cut through the moment like a blade, "isn't this cozy?" They sprang apart, and Sophia felt heat flood her cheeks. How long had Eleanor been watching them? "Mother." Sophia just came up with an amazing integration strategy. "I'm sure she did." Eleanor's smile was ice cold. "Miss Carter, might I have a word with you privately?" It wasn't really a question. Sophia followed Eleanor back down to the construction trailer, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. The moment of truth. Literally. "Sit," Eleanor commanded, gesturing to a folding chair. Sophia sat, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "I'm going to be very direct with you, Miss Carter. Because I believe in efficiency. Eleanor perched on the edge of Tom's desk like a bird of prey. What exactly are you after? I'm sorry? My son is worth approximately $2. $3 billion. His company is valued at twice that. He's intelligent, reasonably attractive, and despite his recent bout of social consciousness, he's still an excellent catch for any woman with ambition. Eleanor's eyes were like lasers. So, I'll ask again. What are you after? This was the moment to tell the truth about their arrangement, about the money, about the fake relationship, the moment to honor their agreement from the night before. Instead, Sophia heard herself saying, I'm not after anything, Mrs. Brooks. Everyone is after something, dear. Money, status, security, revenge. The question is whether you're honest enough to admit it. Fine. Sophia's temper flared. You want honesty? I'll give you honesty. Yes, your son is paying me. Yes. I need the money. Yes. This whole thing started as a business arrangement. Eleanor's eyes lit up with triumph. Ah, there we are. But, Sophia continued, her voice gaining strength, somewhere between yesterday and today, something changed. I started seeing past the money and the fancy hotels and the billion-dollar empire, started seeing a man who's brilliant and passionate and kind, but who's been convinced that his worth is tied to his bank account and his mother's approval. Eleanor's expression shifted, surprise flickering across her features. I see a man who builds sustainable housing because he actually cares about the environment, not because it's profitable, who treats his employees like family and remembers their names and asks about their kids, who's never had anyone love him just for who he is, without conditions or expectations or performance metrics. Sophia stood up, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. So, yes, Mrs. Brooks, I am after something. I'm after the chance to show your son that he's worth loving exactly as he is, not as the person you or anyone else thinks he should be. The silence in the trailer was deafening. Eleanor stared at Sophia with an expression that might have been shock or respect or calculation. Maybe all three. Well, Eleanor said finally, that was unexpected. Before Sophia could respond, the trailer door opened, and Ethan appeared, followed by Tom and two other men in hard hats. Sorry to interrupt, Ethan said, looking between his mother and Sophia with obvious concern, but we have a problem. What kind of problem? Eleanor asked. The kind that could shut down the project permanently. Tom stepped forward, his expression grim. Environmental Protection Agency just showed up. They're saying there might be contaminated soil that wasn't disclosed in the original environmental impact study. Ethan's face went pale. That's impossible. We did 3 separate soil tests. Someone filed a complaint last week. One of the hard-hatted men interrupted. Anonymous tip claiming the previous owner buried chemical waste on the site back in the 82nd. Chemical waste? Sophia stood up. What kind of chemicals? Industrial solvents, according to the complaint, the kind that could leach into groundwater, if disturbed. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his carefully controlled composure cracking. If they find contamination, we'll have to do full remediation. That's months of delays and millions in additional costs. Can the project survive that? Eleanor asked. Honestly, I don't know. We're leveraged pretty heavily on this one. Sophia's mind was racing. Something about this felt wrong. Too convenient. Too perfectly timed. Who knew about today's site visit? She asked suddenly. Everyone looked at her. I mean, who knew that Mrs. Brooks would be here today specifically? Ethan frowned. Just Emily. My security team. He trailed off, his eyes widening. And? Sophia prompted. Isabella Langley Sterling. I mentioned it when she called yesterday to ask about dinner plans. Eleanor's face had gone very still. Isabella called you. She's been persistent lately. Ever since Mother started pushing us together again, and you told her about the site visit. She asked what I was doing today. I mentioned I was bringing Sophia to see the project. Sophia felt the pieces clicking into place. Mrs. Brooks, does Isabella's family have any connections to environmental law or regulatory agencies? Eleanor's expression was answer enough. Her stepfather is a senior partner at one of DC's top environmental law firms, she said quietly, and her uncle sits on the California Environmental Protection Agency board. Ethan's face went white. You think she... I think, Sophia said grimly, that your ex-potential girlfriend just tried to sabotage your project. The trailer erupted into chaos. Tom was already on his phone with the company's legal team. The EPA officials were demanding access to historical records that might not exist, and Ethan was staring at his mother with an expression of betrayal that made Sophia's heart ache. You knew, he said quietly. You knew Isabella was vindictive enough to do something like this. I thought she was just disappointed. Eleanor said weakly, disappointed enough to try to destroy my business. Ethan, I never meant. Yes, you did. Ethan's voice was deadly calm. You've been trying to control my life for so long that you don't even care if you destroy it in the process. Eleanor's face crumpled. For the first time since Sophia had met her, the older woman looked genuinely fragile. I just wanted what was best for you. No, you wanted what was best for your image of what I should be. Ethan turned to Sophia. I need to call our lawyers. Can you handle the EPA team? Of course. What can I do? Eleanor asked. Ethan looked at his mother for a long moment. You can call Isabella and tell her that if she doesn't withdraw this complaint immediately, I'll countersue for harassment and defamation, and then you can decide whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. As Ethan strode out of the trailer, phone already pressed to his ear, Eleanor sank into a folding chair. I've made a terrible mess of things, haven't I? Sophia could have gloated, could have pointed out how Eleanor's manipulations had backfired spectacularly. Instead, she found herself sitting down across from the older woman. Maybe, but messes can be cleaned up, can they? Eleanor looked up with eyes that were suddenly vulnerable. I've spent so many years trying to protect him from making mistakes that I became the biggest mistake in his life. Why? Sophia asked gently. Why was control so important to you? Eleanor was quiet for so long that Sophia thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because his father left when Ethan was 6, just disappeared one day, no explanation, no goodbye. And I was so terrified of losing Ethan too, that I tried to make him perfect, tried to make him into someone who could never be abandoned. Sophia felt her heart crack a little. Mrs. Brooks. But I turned him into someone who abandons himself instead. Someone who doesn't believe he deserves love unless he earns it. Through the trailer window, Sophia could see Ethan pacing as he talked on his phone, his face grim with concentration. Even in crisis, he was beautiful, strong, and determined and utterly alone. It's not too late, she said, to change things, to show him that love doesn't have to be earned. Eleanor looked at her with something that might have been hope. Do you really believe that? I have to, Sophia said, because I'm falling in love with your son. And if I don't believe that love can be unconditional, then we're all screwed. The words hung in the air between them, true and terrifying and completely unplanned. Eleanor's eyes widened. You're falling in love with him. Yeah. Sophia laughed shakily. Wasn't part of the business plan, but there you go. Does he know? Are you kidding? The man thinks he has to pay people to care about him. If I told him I was falling for him, he'd probably assume I was angling for a raise. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, studying Sophia with new interest. Miss Carter, Sophia, I owe you an apology. You don't. I do. I've been treating you like a threat instead of recognizing what you really are. Which is, Eleanor's smile was soft and genuine for the first time since they'd met. The best thing that's ever happened to my son. Before Sophia could respond, Ethan burst back into the trailer. His expression transformed. Good news, he announced. Isabella just withdrew the complaint. Apparently, she suddenly remembered that filing false reports to federal agencies is a felony. How did you? Sophia started. Mother made a very persuasive phone call. Ethan looked at Eleanor with something that might have been gratitude. Thank you. It was the least I could do. Eleanor stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Ethan. I think it's time I headed back to New York. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You have work to finish here. And I have some serious thinking to do about how I've been handling things. Eleanor picked up her purse, then turned to Sophia. Miss Carter, it was a pleasure meeting you. I hope we'll have the chance to talk again soon under better circumstances. And with that cryptic comment, she was gone, leaving Ethan and Sophia alone in the suddenly quiet trailer. Well, Ethan said after a moment, that was unexpected. Which part? The industrial sabotage or your mother actually backing down? Both. Ethan moved closer, his eyes searching her face. Sophia, what did you say to her? The truth. Which truth? Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the moment to either stick to their agreement about keeping things professional or to take the biggest risk of her life. The truth about why I'm really here, she said softly, and why I don't want to leave. Ethan's eyes darkened. Sophia, I know what we agreed. I know this was supposed to be just business, but somewhere between yesterday and today, something changed for me. Changed how? I stopped pretending that what I feel for you is fake. The silence stretched between them, loaded with possibility and fear. Ethan's eyes searched her face, as if he was trying to decode a particularly complex blueprint. This complicates things, he said finally. Everything worthwhile is complicated. Ethan stepped closer, close enough that she could see the uncertainty in his eyes, warring with something that looked like hope. "What are you saying, Sophia?" "I'm saying that I want to renegotiate our contract to the kind where we stop pretending this is just business and start figuring out what it could be instead." Ethan's hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "That's a very risky investment strategy, Miss Carter. The best ones usually are, Mr. Brooks." And then he was kissing her, soft and sweet and real. And Sophia realized that some risks were worth taking, even if you had no idea how they would pay off, especially then. Los Angeles, multiple locations. The kiss lasted exactly 17 seconds. Sophia knew because she could hear the construction crew's radio in the background counting down to the lunch break. 17 seconds that felt like 17 years and 17 heartbeats all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the silence in the trailer was deafening. "Well," Ethan said, his voice rougher than usual, "that was a complete breach of our professional agreement." Sophia finished, though she made no move to step away from him. "Absolutely. Totally inappropriate workplace behavior. We should probably discuss the implications. Definitely. Very thoroughly." Neither of them moved. The space between them hummed with electricity and possibility, and the kind of tension that made smart people do wonderfully stupid things. Ethan's phone buzzed insistently, breaking the spell. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "Emily. She's probably wondering why I haven't checked in." "Answer it," Sophia said, stepping back reluctantly. "We both need a minute to think anyway." Ethan nodded, though his eyes lingered on her lips for a moment longer than strictly professional. "Brooks." Sophia used the distraction to try to collect herself, turning to study the blueprints spread across Tom's desk. The Horizon Tower project really was impressive, not just from an environmental standpoint, but from a social impact perspective. Mixed-income housing, community spaces, local business integration. It was the kind of development that could actually make a difference. "What do you mean, complications?" Ethan's voice had shifted back into CEO mode, sharp and focused. "Emily, slow down. What kind of complications?" Sophia looked up to see his expression darkening as he listened. "When did this happen? How long has he been waiting?" A pause. "No, don't reschedule it. I'll be there in an hour." Another pause. "Yes, bring her. This concerns her, too." He hung up and ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling that somehow made him look even more attractive. "More problems?" Sophia asked. "You could say that Daniel Wong is in town." "Who's Daniel Wong?" Ethan's smile was grim. "Emily's older brother. Also my former business partner. Also the man who tried to steal my company 2 years ago." Sophia felt her stomach drop. "And he's here because, according to Emily, he's been asking questions about you, about us, about why I suddenly have a sustainability consultant who's not on any of our official payroll records." The implications hit Sophia like a physical blow. Of course, they'd been so focused on managing Eleanor's suspicions that they hadn't considered who else might be watching Ethan's personal life for signs of weakness. "He thinks you're compromised," she said, "or he thinks I'm hiding assets." Daniel has always believed that personal relationships are business liabilities. The fact that I'm traveling with a woman who's not in our corporate database would set off every alarm bell he has. Sophia sank into one of the folding chairs, the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. What kind of questions has he been asking? The kind that could destroy both of us if he decides to dig deeper. Ethan started packing up the blueprints with sharp, efficient movements. "Daniel has connections everywhere. Business media, regulatory agencies, competitive intelligence firms. If he wants to make you disappear, he can do it." "Make me disappear?" "Professionally speaking, discredit your credentials, spread rumors about our relationship, make it impossible for you to work in corporate consulting again." Ethan's jaw was tight with controlled anger. He's done it before. The trailer felt suddenly claustrophobic. Sophia stood up, pacing to the small window that overlooked the construction site. Outside, workers were breaking for lunch, their voices carrying on the warm LA breeze. Normal people doing normal jobs without billionaire ex-business partners trying to destroy their careers. "Why did you two fall out?" she asked. Ethan was quiet for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. "Because I trusted him. Because I thought shared vision was more important than shared values. Because I was an idiot. Daniel was my best friend in business school. Brilliant mind. Incredible strategic thinking. Absolutely ruthless when it came to closing deals. When I started Brooks Properties, he was my first investor and my first partner." Ethan moved to stand beside her at the window, his shoulder barely brushing hers. "For 5 years, we built something amazing together. The company grew from a handful of small developments to major projects in 6 cities. We were featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at conferences, hailed as the future of sustainable development. What happened? I found out that sustainable meant something very different to Daniel than it did to me. Ethan's voice turned bitter. While I was focused on environmental impact and community benefit, he was focused on tax breaks and marketing angles, sustainability as a brand strategy rather than a core value. Sophia turned to study his profile. The muscle in his jaw was ticking, and his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. The breaking point came when we were bidding on a major development in Portland, low-income neighborhood, families who'd been there for generations. But the land was prime real estate with incredible potential for gentrification. Let me guess, Daniel saw dollar signs. Daniel saw an opportunity to displace an entire community for profit. I saw an opportunity to create affordable housing that would let people stay in their neighborhood while improving their quality of life. Ethan's laugh was harsh. We pitched 2 completely different projects to the city council, and Daniel went behind my back to the investors, told them I was being naive and sentimental, that my social justice crusade was going to cost them millions in potential returns. Sophia felt her heart break a little for him. What did you do? I bought him out, liquidated half my personal assets, took on debt that nearly killed me, and paid him fair market value for his shares. Ethan's smile was sharp as a blade. Then I built the project exactly as I'd envisioned it. Mixed-income housing, community gardens, local business partnerships. It won 3 sustainability awards and has been profitable from day one. And Daniel started his own firm, Wong Development Group. They specialize in maximum value extraction from urban opportunities, which is corporate speak for gentrification and displacement. Sophia was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. So, when he sees you with an unmarked consultant who's clearly more than just business, he sees an opportunity for revenge, either by proving I'm hiding assets or by demonstrating that I'm making the same sentimental mistakes that led to our split. Ethan's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and grimaced. Emily, Daniel is at the downtown office, and he's not leaving until he meets with me. What are you going to do? Ethan looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Part determination, part regret, part something that looked like apology. I'm going to protect you, which means we need to go back to our original agreement. Sophia felt her heart stop. What do you mean? I mean that as of right now, you're my sustainability consultant. Period. No personal relationship, no romantic complications, no ammunition for Daniel to use against either of us. Ethan, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. His voice had gone cold, distant. This is business. Sophia, it always was business. We just got temporarily distracted. The words hit her like a physical slap. After everything they'd shared, the vulnerability on the terrace, the truth-telling with his mother, the kiss that had changed everything, he was back to treating her like a transaction. That's not what you said 20 minutes ago, she managed. 20 minutes ago, I wasn't thinking clearly. Now I am. Sophia stared at him, searching his face for any sign of the man who'd kissed her so tenderly, who'd trusted her with his deepest fears about his mother's approval and his father's abandonment. But Ethan Brooks, CEO, had taken over completely. So what happens now? She asked. Proud that her voice remained steady. Now we go downtown. You do your job as a consultant, and we give Daniel absolutely nothing to work with. And after that? Ethan's pause was just a fraction too long. After that, we fulfill the terms of our original contract, 3 days, as agreed. And then I go back to New York and pretend this never happened. Yes, the single word was like a door slamming shut. Sophia felt something vital break inside her chest, but she managed to keep her expression neutral. Fine, but I want my full fee. The original $50,000 plus the additional $100,000 you promised for the fake girlfriend performance. Ethan's eyes flashed with something that might have been hurt. Of course, business is business. Exactly. They stared at each other across the trailer, the space between them suddenly feeling like a chasm. Less than half an hour ago, they'd been talking about renegotiating their contract for something real. Now they were back to negotiating the terms of their professional divorce. We should go, Ethan said finally. Daniel doesn't like to be kept waiting. The drive to Brooks Properties' downtown LA office was conducted in tense silence. Sophia stared out the window at the city passing by. Palm trees and food trucks, street art and homeless encampments. The beautiful contradictions of Los Angeles, sprawling in all directions. She tried to focus on the scenery rather than the man sitting beside her, radiating controlled tension like a coiled spring, Ethan's downtown office occupied 3 floors of a gleaming high-rise in the financial district. The lobby was all marble and steel, with a living wall of succulents that probably cost more than Sophia's annual rent. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt endless. "Remember," Ethan said as they stepped out into the reception area, "you're here as a consultant, nothing more." "I get it," Sophia replied coolly, professional distance maintained at all times. Emily Wong was waiting for them, her usually composed demeanor showing cracks of stress around the edges. She was petite and elegant, with sharp cheekbones and the kind of effortless style that suggested expensive taste and an unlimited budget. "He's in the conference room," Emily said without preamble. "He's been here for 2 hours, and he's already asked to see our client files, personnel records, and financial statements." "What did you tell him?" "That he's not a partner anymore and can go pound sand." But more diplomatically, despite everything, Sophia found herself liking Emily even more. "Is he alone?" Ethan asked. "He brought his assistant and what looks like a private investigator." Emily's expression was grim. "This isn't a social call, Ethan. He's building a case for something." Ethan straightened his tie, slipping fully into corporate armor. "Let's get this over with." The conference room was a temple to corporate success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA, a table that could seat 20, and enough technology to run a small government. At the far end, a man who looked like an older, sharper version of Emily sat reviewing documents with the focused intensity of a predator studying prey. Daniel Wong was handsome in the way that successful men often were. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, the kind of confident bearing that came from never having to doubt your own worth. When he looked up as they entered, his smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Ethan, there's my old partner." Daniel stood, extending a hand with practiced corporate bonhomie. "You look good. Success suits you." Ethan shook the offered hand with minimal enthusiasm. "Daniel, I heard you were in town. Business never sleeps. You know how it is. I'm working on a few opportunities in the area." Daniel's eyes shifted to Sophia with laser focus. "And you must be the mysterious consultant I've been hearing about." "Sophia Carter," she said, shaking his hand with as much professionalism as she could muster. "I specialize in corporate sustainability strategies." "How fascinating. And you're working exclusively with Brooks Properties now?" The question was casual, but Sophia could feel the trap in it. "I'm consulting on the Horizon Tower project specifically." "Ah, the mixed-use development downtown. Very ambitious, very idealistic." Daniel's smile sharpened. Ethan always did have a soft spot for social justice projects. "I prefer to think of them as smart business investments," Ethan replied evenly. "Of course you do. That's what makes you so admirable. You genuinely believe that doing good and making money are compatible goals." There was condescension in Daniel's tone that made Sophia's teeth clench. She recognized the type. Men who mistook cynicism for sophistication and treated idealism like a character flaw. "In my experience," she said smoothly, "companies that prioritize sustainability and social responsibility consistently outperform their competitors in both market value and employee retention." Daniel turned his full attention to her, and Sophia felt like a specimen under a microscope. "Interesting perspective. And you base this on how many years of experience in corporate consulting?" The question was designed to undermine her credibility. But Sophia had dealt with condescending executives before. 5 years in environmental consulting, 3 years in corporate sustainability strategy, and a master's degree in environmental science from Columbia, plus extensive fieldwork with Fortune 500 companies implementing green building certifications and carbon offset programs. Every word was true, and she delivered them with the kind of quiet confidence that made Daniel's smile falter slightly. "Impressive credentials," he said, "though, I have to say, it's unusual for Ethan to bring in outside consultants without going through the usual vetting process." "What vetting process would that be?" Ethan's voice had gone dangerously quiet, the kind that ensures consultants are who they claim to be. Background checks, reference verification, financial disclosure. Daniel leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. The kind of due diligence that protects companies from fraud, industrial espionage, or conflicts of interest. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Sophia felt her temper beginning to fray. "Are you suggesting I'm not qualified for this position?" she asked. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply noting that it's unusual for a company as established as Brooks Properties to hire consultants without proper documentation." "Miss Carter's qualifications speak for themselves," Ethan said tersely. "I'm sure they do, though I notice she's not listed on your company website. not mentioned in any press releases about the Horizon project, and doesn't appear to have any documented history with Brooks Properties prior to this week. Daniel had done his homework. Sophia could feel the walls closing in. Not all consulting arrangements require public disclosure, she said carefully. True, though some arrangements require very specific disclosure. SEC regulations about related party transactions, for instance, or IRS requirements about executive compensation and benefits. The threat was crystal clear. Daniel was suggesting that Ethan was either hiding assets or providing undisclosed compensation to someone with whom he had a personal relationship. Ethan's hands were clenched on the conference table, his knuckles white with tension. Daniel, what exactly are you trying to accomplish here? I'm trying to look out for an old friend. Your company has grown tremendously since our split, but rapid growth can make people careless, vulnerable to the wrong influences. Daniel's eyes flicked to Sophia meaningfully. I'd hate to see you make decisions that could compromise everything you've built. The silence in the room was suffocating. Sophia could see Ethan struggling between his desire to defend her and his need to protect his company. She could also see Daniel enjoying every moment of the conflict he'd created. You know what? Sophia stood up, her decision crystallizing with perfect clarity. This has been illuminating. But I think I've heard enough. Miss Carter, Ethan started. No, it's fine. Mr. Wong has made his position very clear. Sophia turned to Daniel with a smile that could have cut glass. You're concerned about my qualifications and my relationship with Brooks Properties. I understand completely. Daniel leaned forward, sensing victory. So, you'll be ending your consulting arrangement? Actually, no. I'll be expanding it. The room went dead silent. Ethan stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. Expanding it how? Daniel asked carefully. Sophia pulled out her phone and opened her email app with deliberate precision. By accepting the full-time position that Ethan offered me yesterday, Senior Director of Sustainability Strategy with a comprehensive employment package, stock options, and full integration into the company's executive structure. Ethan's eyes widened. They'd never discussed any such position, but Sophia was gambling everything on his ability to follow her lead. The paperwork should be finalized by Monday, she continued, typing rapidly on her phone, along with my relocation to the Los Angeles office and my appointment to the Board of Advisors for all future Brooks Properties developments. Daniel looked like he'd been slapped. Ethan, is this true? Ethan stared at Sophia for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. When he spoke, his voice was steady and sure. Miss Carter has proven herself to be exactly the kind of visionary leadership Brooks Properties needs for our next phase of growth. Her insights on the Horizon project alone have added millions in potential value. But the timing is perfect, Ethan interrupted. We've been planning this expansion for months. Miss Carter's consulting work was essentially an extended interview process. It was a masterful performance, and Daniel knew it. But he couldn't prove otherwise without admitting he'd been conducting unauthorized surveillance of Ethan's business activities. How convenient, Daniel said finally. I prefer strategic, Sophia replied sweetly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a contract to review and a relocation to plan. She gathered her purse and headed for the door, every step requiring tremendous effort to maintain her composure. Behind her, she could hear Ethan wrapping up the meeting with the kind of corporate efficiency that brooked no argument. In the elevator, alone for the first time since the confrontation began, Sophia allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to fall apart. Her hands shook as she pressed the button for the lobby, and her breathing came in short, sharp bursts that might have been laughter or sobs. She'd just committed herself to a job that didn't exist in a city she'd never planned to live in, working for a man who'd made it crystal clear that their relationship was strictly business. She'd also just saved both their careers and called Daniel Wong's bluff in the most spectacular way possible. The elevator doors opened on the lobby, and Sophia stepped out into the marble and steel wonderland of corporate Los Angeles. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the city stretching out in all directions, endless possibilities and terrifying uncertainties wrapped up in sunshine and smog. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. That was either the stupidest or most brilliant thing I've ever seen anyone do in a business meeting. Emily. Sophia typed back quickly. Probably both. Is your boss going to fire me for insubordination? Are you kidding? He looked like he wanted to kiss you right there in front of Daniel. Sophia's heart did something complicated in her chest. But he won't. Why not? Because he's an idiot who thinks protection means pushing people away. The lobby was filling up with the afternoon rush. Executives heading to late meetings, assistants running errands, tourists gawking at the architectural details, normal people living normal lives. unaware that Sophia Carter had just burned every bridge she had in the name of defending a man who'd already made it clear he didn't want her. Her phone rang. Ethan's name on the caller ID. "Carter," she answered, proud of how professional she sounded. "Where are you?" "Lobby. Waiting for a taxi to take me back to the hotel." "Don't. I'm coming down." "Ethan, we don't need to." "5 minutes, please." The line went dead. Sophia stared at her phone, torn between the urge to flee and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he was coming to tell her that everything he'd said in the construction trailer had been a lie designed to protect them both. The elevator chimed, and Ethan stepped out, his tie loosened, his hair mussed from running his hands through it. He spotted her immediately and crossed the lobby with long, purposeful strides. "We need to talk," he said when he reached her. "I think we've talked enough for one day. Sophia, what you did up there was necessary. Daniel was going to destroy both of us unless I gave him something bigger to think about. By inventing a job that doesn't exist. By creating a solution that benefits everyone." Sophia lifted her chin defiantly. "You get a qualified sustainability director who actually understands your vision. I get a career opportunity that's worth relocating for. Daniel gets proof that our relationship is purely professional. Everybody wins." Ethan stared at her with an expression she couldn't read. "And what if I don't want it to be purely professional?" The words hit her like a physical blow. Sophia felt her carefully constructed composure begin to crack. "Then you shouldn't have spent the last 2 hours making it crystal clear that business is the only thing that matters to you. I was trying to protect you. By throwing away everything we'd built, by pretending that kiss meant nothing, by reducing me back to a transaction." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't understand the kind of damage Daniel could do." "I understand perfectly. What I don't understand is why you think I'm too weak to handle it." "I don't think you're weak. Then why didn't you fight for us? Why didn't you trust me to stand beside you, instead of assuming I needed to be hidden away like some shameful secret?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Around them, the lobby buzzed with activity, but they might as well have been alone in the universe. "Because," Ethan said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "everyone I've ever cared about eventually leaves, and I'd rather push you away myself than watch you walk away when things get difficult." The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in Sophia's chest. She could see the scared 6-year-old boy beneath the billionaire CEO, still waiting for the people he loved to abandon him. "Ethan, the job offer is real," he said suddenly. "Senior Director of Sustainability Strategy, full executive package, stock options. The works. You'd be perfect for it. And us?" Ethan looked at her with eyes full of longing and fear and hope. "That depends on whether you're willing to take a risk on a man who's very good at building things, but terrible at trusting people not to tear them down." Sophia felt her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. The moment where she could choose safety, take the job, keep things professional, protect herself from the possibility of heartbreak, or she could choose the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of something real with a man who was worth fighting for. "The job comes with relocation assistance?" she asked. Ethan blinked, clearly not expecting the question. "Yes. Full package. And how much notice do I need to give in New York?" "Sophia, 2 weeks, a month. You're really considering this?" Sophia stepped closer, close enough to see the golden flecks in his blue eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I'm considering a lot of things, Ethan Brooks. The question is whether you're brave enough to consider them with me." Before he could respond, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Is that a yes?" Ethan asked. "That's a maybe. Ask me again tomorrow when you've had time to decide whether you want a sustainability director or something more complicated." "Sophia, tomorrow, Ethan. Give me one night to think about whether I want to rearrange my entire life for a man who's still figuring out whether he wants me in it." And with that, she walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the middle of the lobby with the taste of possibility on his lips and the most important decision of his life waiting to be made. Outside, Los Angeles stretched out under the late afternoon sun, golden and infinite, and full of the kind of possibilities that only came when you were brave enough to risk everything for the chance at something extraordinary. Sophia Carter had never been the safe choice. She was betting that Ethan Brooks was finally ready to stop playing it safe, too. Los Angeles, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and Brooks Properties headquarters, at 3:47 a.m. Sophia Carter was wide awake, staring at the ceiling of her Beverly Hills hotel suite, and mentally calculating how many different ways her life could implode in the next 12 hours. The Egyptian cotton sheets that had seemed like luxury 48 hours ago now felt like an expensive prison, and the gentle hum of the air conditioning couldn't drown out the chaos in her head. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent and accusatory. No calls from Ethan, no texts, no middle-of-the-night confessions or desperate declarations of feelings that couldn't wait until morning. Just silence, which was somehow worse than any rejection could have been. She'd given him 24 hours to decide whether he wanted a sustainability director or something more complicated. In typical Ethan Brooks fashion, he was using every minute of those 24 hours to overthink, overanalyze, and probably construct a detailed pros and cons spreadsheet about the viability of romantic relationships with employees. Sophia grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts, stopping at her best friend Olivia's number, but it was nearly 7 o'clock a.m. in New York, and Olivia would be getting ready for her shift at the hospital. Besides, how did you explain that you'd accidentally fallen in love with a billionaire while pretending to be his fake girlfriend to spite his manipulative mother, then invented a job to outwit his corporate nemesis, and were now waiting to see if he was brave enough to choose love over fear? Some situations were too complicated, even for best friend advice. Instead, she scrolled through her email, trying to distract herself with work. 3 new consulting inquiries had come in since she'd been in LA. Word traveled fast in the sustainability community, and apparently being associated with Brooks Properties, even temporarily, had elevated her professional profile considerably. One email made her pause. Dr. Maria Gonzalez, Director of the Environmental Sustainability Program at UCLA, wondering if Sophia might be interested in a guest lecturer position for the fall semester. The pay was modest, but it was exactly the kind of academic credibility that could take her consulting practice to the next level. In New York, where her life was, where her rent-controlled apartment and her carefully built professional network and her Friday night wine dates with Olivia were waiting for her to come to her senses and stop chasing impossible dreams with emotionally unavailable Millionaire. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text, and Sophia's heart leaped until she saw the sender. Can't sleep either, Emily? Sophia typed back quickly. How did you know I was awake? Because my brother called me at 3 o'clock a.m. ranting about corporate espionage and suspicious consultants. Also, because I've been lying awake wondering if my boss is going to do something incredibly stupid. Define incredibly stupid. Like convince himself that protecting you means letting you go. He's done it before. Sophia sat up, suddenly more alert. What do you mean? Can you meet me for coffee? There are some things you should know about Ethan. Things that might help you understand why he's taking so long to make what should be an obvious decision. 20 minutes later, Sophia found herself in an all-night diner on Sunset Boulevard, staring across a vinyl booth at Emily Wong and wondering how her life had become complicated enough to require emergency 4 o'clock a.m. strategy sessions. The diner was a classic LA institution. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and the kind of fluorescent lighting that made everyone look like they were recovering from a serious illness. At this hour, it was populated by night shift workers, insomniacs, and people whose lives were too messy for normal business hours. Emily looked as polished as ever, despite the early hour, her black hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her makeup still perfect. She'd ordered black coffee and apple pie, while Sophia had opted for tea and the kind of nervous energy that made sitting still impossible. So, Emily said without preamble, what do you know about Ethan's romantic history? That he dates appropriate heiresses who bore him to death and doesn't trust people not to leave him. Also that his father abandoned the family when he was 6. That's the abbreviated version. The real story is more complicated. Emily took a sip of coffee, gathering her thoughts. Ethan's father didn't just leave. He embezzled $2 million from his own company and disappeared to avoid prosecution. Left behind massive debts, a federal investigation, and a wife and son who became social pariahs overnight. Sophia felt her heart clench. How old was Ethan? 6 when his father left, 12 when the family lost their house, 16 when he decided he'd had enough of depending on anyone else for anything. The pieces were starting to fit together. The fortress of control, the inability to trust. The way Ethan treated every relationship like a potential business liability. What happened when he was 16? Emily's expression darkened. His first real girlfriend, Lily Peterson. They'd been together for 2 years. We're talking about going to the same college. The whole teenage romance fantasy. Then Eleanor started pressuring Ethan to apply to more prestigious schools. worried that his father's reputation would follow him if he didn't excel academically. Let me guess, Lily didn't fit into those plans. Lily came from a working-class family. Her father was a mechanic, her mother a hairdresser. Sweet girl, genuinely cared about Ethan. But Eleanor saw her as a liability to Ethan's social rehabilitation. Sophia could already see where this was heading, and she didn't like it. Eleanor started a campaign to break them up. Subtle at first comments about how Ethan needed to focus on his future, how teenage relationships rarely lasted, how Lily might be holding him back from his potential, and Ethan fought it at first. But then the private investigator Eleanor hired found out that Lily's uncle had been arrested for drug possession 5 years earlier. Nothing to do with Lily, but enough for Eleanor to convince Ethan that association with the Peterson family could damage his college applications. Emily took another sip of coffee, her expression grim. The night before senior prom, Ethan broke up with Lily, told her he needed to focus on his future, that they wanted different things, that it was better to end things cleanly rather than drag out the inevitable, and Lily was devastated, completely blindsided. She'd been planning their future together while he was calculating exit strategies. Sophia felt sick. What happened to her? She moved to Oregon after graduation, became a teacher, married a nice guy, has 3 kids, and seems genuinely happy. But Ethan has never forgiven himself for how he handled it, because he hurt her. Because he realized that he'd become exactly like his father, someone who abandoned the people who loved him rather than fight for them. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the booth. Outside, Los Angeles was beginning to stir. Delivery trucks making early runs, joggers starting their morning routines, the city slowly waking up to another day of dreams and disappointments. Why are you telling me this? Sophia asked. Because I've watched Ethan build an empire over the past 15 years, but I've also watched him systematically eliminate any possibility of real human connection from his life. He's convinced himself that caring about people makes him weak, that love is a luxury he can't afford. Emily leaned forward, her expression intense. But then you came along and completely destroyed his carefully constructed emotional firewall in less than 3 days. And now he's terrified of what? Of turning into his father, of hurting you the way he hurt Lily, of letting his feelings compromise his judgment and losing everything he's built. Emily leaned back, her coffee cup empty. He's scared that if he lets you in, he'll lose control. And for Ethan, control is everything. Sophia stared into her tea, watching the steam rise in delicate spirals. So what am I supposed to do? Wait around while he works through 15 years of emotional damage? I don't know. But I do know that Ethan Brooks has never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. And I know that if you walk away now, he'll spend the rest of his life convincing himself that he was right to let you go. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. There's something else, Emily said finally, about the job offer. What about it? It's real. I spent most of yesterday putting together the paperwork. Salary, benefits, stock options, relocation package, the whole thing. Ethan's been talking about creating a sustainability director position for months, but he could never find the right person until now. Until now, Sophia's voice was quiet, her mind racing. But, Sophia, you need to know that if you take this job, you'll be walking into a war zone. What do you mean? Emily's expression was grim. Daniel isn't done. The stunt you pulled yesterday just made him more determined to prove that Ethan's judgment is compromised. He's going to be watching every decision you make, every project you touch, every interaction you have with Ethan, looking for what? Proof that your relationship is affecting business decisions. Evidence that Ethan's giving you preferential treatment or access to confidential information. Anything he can use to discredit both of you. Sophia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the diner's aggressive air conditioning. How much damage could he really do? Daniel has connections everywhere. Business media, regulatory agencies, competitive intelligence firms. If he wants to make your life difficult, he can do it. And if he can prove that Ethan's making business decisions based on personal relationships rather than corporate interests, he could trigger an investor revolt, meaning Ethan could lose control of his own company. The magnitude of the stakes hit Sophia like a physical blow. She'd been thinking about this in terms of personal risk, her career, her heart, her future. But Ethan stood to lose everything he'd built if this went wrong. Maybe he's right to keep things professional, she said quietly. Maybe. Or maybe that's exactly what Daniel is counting on, that Ethan will be so afraid of losing his company that he'll sacrifice his personal happiness to protect it. Emily finished her coffee and signaled for the check. Look, I don't know what the right answer is, But I do know that Ethan has spent 15 years building walls to protect himself, and you're the first person who's made him want to tear them down. The question is whether you're brave enough to help him do it, even if it means risking everything in the process. By the time Sophia returned to the hotel, the sun was rising over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that would have been beautiful if she hadn't been consumed with existential dread about her future. The hotel lobby was beginning to fill with early risers. Business travelers heading to the airport, tourists planning their day, people whose lives made sense and followed predictable patterns. She rode the elevator to the penthouse level, mentally rehearsing the conversation she needed to have with Ethan. Professional boundaries, mutual respect, a clean separation between business and personal feelings. All the things that smart people did to protect themselves from unnecessary complications. The elevator doors opened, and Sophia stepped into the hallway to find Ethan sitting on the floor outside her suite. Still wearing yesterday's suit, but looking like he'd slept in it. His hair was mussed, his tie was missing, and he had the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd spent the night wrestling with demons. "How long have you been sitting there?" she asked. 4, maybe 5 hours. Ethan struggled to his feet, wincing as his joints protested. "I tried knocking, but you weren't here. I was having coffee with your assistant, learning about your tragic romantic history and the various ways Daniel Wong could destroy both our careers." Ethan's expression tightened. "Emily shouldn't have." "Shouldn't have what?" "Help me understand why the man I'm falling for is so terrified of letting anyone close to him." The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest, and impossible to take back. Ethan stared at her with an expression that cycled through surprise, fear, and something that looked dangerously like hope. "Sophia," he started. "No, let me finish. Because I've been up all night thinking about this, and I've come to some conclusions." She unlocked her suite door and gestured for him to follow her inside. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows made everything look different, softer, more forgiving, full of possibilities that the harsh fluorescent lights of the diner had obscured. "I've been offered a lecturer position at UCLA," she said without preamble. "Good money, academic credibility, the kind of opportunity that could really advance my career." Ethan's face went carefully blank. That's great. You'd be perfect for academic work." "I would be. It's safe, predictable, and comes with zero risk of falling in love with emotionally unavailable billionaires." "Sophia, I'm also perfectly qualified for the sustainability director position at Brooks Properties. It's exactly the kind of work I've been training for my entire career, and the chance to implement environmental strategies on the scale of your developments is the opportunity of a lifetime." Ethan was watching her with the intensity of someone trying to decode a particularly complex puzzle. "But here's the thing," Sophia continued, moving to stand by the windows overlooking the Hollywood Hills. "Both of those opportunities are about my career, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm realizing that my career isn't the only thing that matters to me." "What else matters?" She turned to face him, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You. This, whatever this could be, if we were both brave enough to find out." Ethan took a step toward her, then stopped, his hands clenched at his sides. "Sophia, you don't understand what you'd be risking. Daniel wasn't bluffing yesterday. He has the resources and the connections to make both our lives very difficult if he decides we're a threat. So, we make sure we're not a threat." "How?" "By being so good at our jobs that no one can question our professional competence, by maintaining clear boundaries between business and personal decisions, by proving that it's possible to have both professional excellence and personal happiness." Ethan shook his head. "You're being naive. Business doesn't work that way. Personal relationships always compromise. Professional judgment, and Daniel knows it. Do they? Or is that just what you've been telling yourself to justify keeping everyone at arm's length?" The question hit its mark. Ethan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Sophia thought he might walk away entirely. Instead, he moved closer. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion and longing warring in his blue eyes. "What if you're wrong? What if I can't separate my feelings for you from my business decisions? What if caring about you makes me weak? Then we deal with it together. And if Daniel destroys your career in the process, then we build a new one. I'm not made of glass, Ethan. I can handle whatever Daniel Wong throws at me, but you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to risk everything just because I can't keep my personal life separate from my professional responsibilities." Sophia reached up and framed his face with her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Ethan Brooks, listen to me very carefully. I am not Lily Peterson. I'm not some fragile teenager who's going to be devastated if this doesn't work out. I'm a grown woman who's perfectly capable of making her own decisions about what risks are worth taking. Sophia, and you are not your father. You're not going to abandon me when things get difficult because you're not the kind of man who runs away from problems. You're the kind of man who builds sustainable housing for low-income families, fights off corporate sabotage, and stands up to manipulative mothers. Ethan's hands came up to cover hers, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. What if I hurt you? What if you don't? What if this ruins everything we've both worked for? What if it makes everything we've worked for actually worth something? They stared at each other in the golden morning light, balanced on the edge of a decision that would change both their lives irrevocably. Sophia could see the moment when Ethan's defenses finally crumbled, when the scared 6-year-old boy who'd learned that love meant loss finally stepped aside and let the man take over. "I love you," he said simply. "I've been trying not to, but I love you anyway." Sophia felt her heart explode with joy and relief, and the kind of terrifying happiness that came with getting everything you'd ever wanted. "I love you too. Even though you're an emotionally constipated workaholic with trust issues and a manipulative mother." Ethan laughed, the sound bright and surprised and completely genuine. "Those are some pretty significant character flaws. I have a thing for fixer-uppers. Is that what I am? You're a work in progress. We both are." Ethan's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. "So, what happens now? Now you offer me that job for real, with clear expectations, professional boundaries, and a salary that reflects my actual qualifications rather than guilt money for fake girlfriend services. Done. What else? Now, we figure out how to navigate a professional relationship and a personal relationship without letting either one compromise the other. That's going to be complicated. The best things usually are." Ethan's smile was soft and real and full of the kind of promise that made smart women do wonderfully reckless things. "Anything else? Now you kiss me like you mean it, and we start figuring out how to build something that's worth fighting for. I can do that." And he did. Soft and sweet and full of the kind of certainty that came from finally choosing courage over fear. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard and grinning like idiots. "So," Ethan said, his forehead resting against hers, ready to take on Daniel Wong and the entire corporate establishment. "Bring it on. But first, I need coffee and a shower and about 12 hours of sleep." "How about coffee and a shower? And then we go to the office and make your employment official. I want the paperwork filed before Daniel has a chance to cause any more trouble." "On a Saturday? Millionaire privilège. The office is always open when you own the building." 2 hours later, Sophia found herself back in the Brooks Properties Tower. But this time as an official employee, rather than a fake girlfriend or emergency consultant. The paperwork was extensive. Employment contracts, benefits enrollment, stock option agreements, and enough legal documentation to stock a small law library. Emily had arrived, despite the weekend, to handle the administrative details, and she was clearly enjoying the process of making Sophia's employment completely bulletproof from a legal standpoint. "Daniel is going to hate this," Emily said cheerfully as she organized the signature pages. "Everything is completely above board, documented, and tied to measurable performance metrics. There's literally nothing he can challenge." "What about the timing?" Sophia asked. "Won't it seem suspicious that I'm being hired right after yesterday's confrontation?" "The job posting has been live on our website for 3 months, Ethan replied. Emily backdated it as part of a routine HR update. "As far as anyone can prove, your hiring process has been completely standard, devious." "I like it. Corporate warfare requires creative thinking," Emily said. "Besides, Daniel isn't the only one with connections. I've already reached out to 3 business journalists who are very interested in doing profiles on Brooks Properties' innovative approach to sustainable development." "Meaning?" "Meaning that by Monday morning, the business press is going to be much more interested in your qualifications and vision than in whatever gossip Daniel might be spreading." Sophia signed the last document and sat back in her chair, officially employed by Brooks Properties as Senior Director of Sustainability Strategy. It felt surreal. 3 days ago, she'd been a struggling freelance consultant with a rent-controlled apartment in Queens. Now, she was a corporate executive with stock options and a relocation budget. "So, what's my first assignment?" she asked. Ethan's smile was wicked. "How do you feel about a business trip to Portland? I want to show you the mixed-income housing project that ended my partnership with Daniel, and I want your professional opinion on our next development proposal, which is a 50-unit affordable housing complex in East LA. Community gardens, solar power, partnerships with local businesses." the kind of project that makes money and makes a difference. Sophia felt a surge of genuine excitement. This was why she'd gotten into sustainability consulting, the chance to work on projects that actually mattered. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. We'll spend the week in Portland, then fly back for the Horizon Tower groundbreaking ceremony next Friday. Business class? Private jet. Another one of those billionaire privileges. I could get used to this. Ethan moved around the desk to stand behind her chair, his hands resting on her shoulders. Just remember, this is a business trip. Professional boundaries. Appropriate behavior. Separate hotel rooms. Absolutely. Nothing but corporate professionalism. Good. Because I have a reputation to maintain. Sophia leaned back against him, enjoying the warmth and solid strength of his presence. What kind of reputation? Ruthless businessman, emotionally unavailable, completely focused on profit margins and market share. Sounds boring. It was until a certain sustainability consultant locked me in an airplane and completely destroyed my carefully ordered life. I prefer to think of it as introducing beneficial chaos into an overly rigid system. Ethan laughed, the sound vibrating through his chest. Is that your professional opinion, Director Carter? That's my professional opinion, Mr. Brooks. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Los Angeles sprawled in all directions under the afternoon sun. Somewhere in the city, Daniel Wong was probably plotting their professional destruction. Somewhere else, Eleanor Brooks was learning to accept that her son had finally found someone worth fighting for. And in Portland, a mixed-income housing development was proving that it was possible to do well while doing good. But in the 32nd floor conference room of Brooks Properties, Sophia Carter and Ethan Brooks were building something new. A partnership that was professional and personal, profitable and principled, risky and completely worth it. So, Ethan said, his breath warm against her ear, ready to change the world, one sustainable development at a time. I love your ambition, Director Carter. I love your vision, Mr. Brooks. Even though I'm an emotionally constipated workaholic with trust issues, especially because of that, like I said, I have a thing for fixer-uppers. And as the California sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and promise, Sophia Carter and Ethan Brooks began planning their first project together. A future that was complicated and uncertain and absolutely perfect. 3 months later, Architectural Digest would feature the Horizon Tower on its cover as the future of sustainable urban living. 6 months later, Ethan would propose during a site visit to their Portland project, presenting the ring in a community garden they'd helped design. A year later, they would be married in a ceremony powered entirely by solar energy, with flowers from their own rooftop gardens and a guest list that included construction workers, environmental activists, and one reformed socialite mother who had learned that love didn't always come with terms and conditions. But that Saturday afternoon in the Brooks Properties conference room, all of that was still future possibility. What mattered was the present moment. Two professionals who had found something worth building together, one sustainable development at a time. The plane door had been locked by accident. Everything that followed was completely intentional and absolutely worth the turbulence. The end.